Welcome to Mind Talks, a podcast discussing all things psychology backed by facts, science, and most importantly, by professionals.
Yes, so getting professional advice is heavily stigmatized. The very thought of reaching out and asking for even a consultation is considered a big deal, and media outlets such as the news, various social media platforms, and even our country treats and respects mental health significantly less than our physical health, which further causes everybody to devalue it. Do we know about and understand mental health enough to dispel the myths surrounding professional health? Dismantling stigma, overcoming inhibition, and embracing fearless ambition. Mind Talks demystifies the misconceptions and dispels the myths about counseling. Hosted by our very own Cebu Normal University psychology seniors, Crystal Amistad and Eliza Abrera.
Maayong hapon sa tanan, maayong adlaw, good afternoon, and this afternoon, we are here to use our platform to give us and the listeners a safe space to tackles about overcoming the fear of committing mistakes. We are here to acknowledge about mental issues, to validate struggles that others may view as inconsequential, but deserves to be heard nonetheless. Because having emotions, no matter how negative they may be, are normal.
Yes, thank you for pointing out that Eliza. Good afternoon, our dear listeners. We are here to give people the lens to see through things that most would easily dismiss given how busy life is and with other pressing matters to attend to. We're here to remind you, our dear listeners, and solidify the idea that just because your hurt is not physically seen doesn't mean you should just brush it aside. We see you, and we're here to take the first steps with you in getting the help that you need. Welcome to Mind Talks, a podcast discussing all things psychology backed by facts, science, and most importantly, by professionals.
That's right. Today's podcast topic is interesting and highly relevant, especially at a time where we are mostly left to our own thoughts because the pursuit of outside activities and human interactions become more limited because of the pandemic. Mostly considered taboo in the Philippines and other countries around the world, counseling or seeking professional help isn't as normalized as we want it to be.
This is actually very unfortunate, but that is exactly right. That is what is happening with our world right now, Eliza. Although, yeah, slowly but surely, mental health has been an important topic as of lately. Getting professional help is still heavily stigmatized, and I know it's nowhere near being prioritized as the other branches of healthcare in our country. And I know that our listeners also observe this too. I've actually seen a lot of mental health institutions in the country, and a lot of facilities are still lacking in various aspects despite the newly established law. I think it was Republic Act 11036 or the National Mental Health Law. Despite it being established, we still have a lot to catch up on in prioritizing mental health.
That's true, no? Not to mention the culture of manipulating people into questioning what they believe or feel, or what we call as gaslighting, of undermining the mental health profession and of the lack of mental health education in general. There are a lot of factors contributing to the poor state of mental health care in the country. And while our personal experience could speak for themselves, seeking opinion from a mental professional should be a solid first step towards addressing mental health problems and the misgiving people have against it.
Yes, and to give us a few more insights in today's topic, let us welcome today's guest speaker, Ms. Chasa Ruth V. Capitan. Ms. Capitan is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Psychology and AB Guidance and Counseling at St. Scholastica's College in Manila. She studied Master of Arts in Psychology at San Beda College, Alabang, Kupang, Muntinlupa, Metro Manila, and is currently a psychometrician at the said school. She is also now a registered psychologist who passed last 2019. Everyone, please give our guest speaker a very warm welcome, Ms. Chesa Ruth V. Capitan.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miss. Thank you again. Thank you so much for granting us your honor on today's podcast episode, Miss.
Yes, thank you also for the opportunity to talk to younger generation of future psychometricians and future psychologists, I hope.
Yes, Miss.
All right.
Hopefully, Miss.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Miss. And I know that we have a really competent guest and a really knowledgeable speaker for today, our dear listeners. So just get on your seat, continue listening as Miss Shasa will help us learn more about guidance and counseling for today's episode.
Yes, Miss Jessa will shed light regarding the fear of students in reaching out to counselors as we delve into the latest problems, find amusement in the most outrageous thoughts, and take a closer look at whose voices are actually unheard in this conversation. It's going to be a fascinating, informational, and eye-opening podcast that we think you will all enjoy.
Okay. So it's no secret no that a lot of people are actually very hesitant in seeking out help from professional like counselors. So ikaw, Crystal, what's your experience regarding this?
I actually have a really negative connotation about guidance and counseling, Miss, because I don't know if it's the same, but way back in high school, I came from a public school, and I don't know if it's still the same in private school. But in public school, guidance and counseling is you only go to the guidance counselor when you committed something bad or you committed a mistake in the school, and then your signature will be put in the anecdotal note, and then that signature will affect your grade, or you there is also a chance that you will not graduate if you have too much signature on the anecdotal note. So guidance and counseling for me really fears me. Like I have this thought that it's something fearful that I should not reach out to guidance counselor because I feel like I have committed a mistake. So I think this is a very common misconception among schools, Miss. So I think it's very important that we talk about this as well.
Mm. That's unfortunate. No, in our community, Kai, it's not really talked about yun, especially with the older elders. It's as if hindi option yung magtanong or ask help from counselor. So for our first question, Miss, based on a professional's point of view, what are the possible origins for the reason behind why a person would not reach out to a counselor?
Siguro ano na din, it's also because of our societal norms na when we reach out to these kinds of professionals, meron tayo, we have that connotation that you're crazy, why aren't you mentally fit? Like, that's just a typical problem. You're supposed to be okay. Parang ganun. Parang having the mental problems, they perceived it before as something that is, it's not serious. And that seeking out for people, professionals, for this kind of field is something that's only common for those who are schizophrenic, who are really retarded, diba? And so even if you have simple problems and you have like normal issues in your life and you really can't handle it, feeling mo it's wrong to seek out for people because it's a typical problem. I should be able to solve it. But that's not the case. The case is, as long as you need help, if you really can't handle it on your own, you can always seek out. And the sad thing is that people find being sad or having the problem of dealing with our own personal issues, even if it is small, we are afraid to seek out because people tend to call us like you're weak, or why are you crazy? Are you crazy? Are you getting para you don't know how to handle simple issues? Parang ang hina mo naman as an individual. Parang ang hirap nun. So to avoid criticism, to avoid misjudgment from people, we tend to avoid going to these profession because we tend to avoid seeking professional help because we don't want to be labeled as someone crazy. So that's the sad thing na we really have to try to clarify to people, to a lot of people, not to just people who needs help, but even to the people around them. Yan.
Yes,
Thank you.
I think it's very important that we clear that, Miss, because I also think, Miss, a lot of younger generations are afraid to reach out to their guidance counselor today because they only have like one learning or one certain definition of guidance and counseling sa mind nila na parang, ay, ganito lang yung nangyayari pag guidance and counseling session or ganito lang yung guidance counselor. Ganyan,
Yes.
so, my question sana, Miss, is, can you share some information, Miss, if there are different types of counseling so that our listeners will be para ma-clear sa kanila din, Miss, about this one?
Well, there are different types of counseling. So, meron tayo dyan yung pang-family. So, there's the marriage and family counseling. Meron tayong for guidance, yung sa school. So, there's the guidance and career counseling. There's also for rehabilitation. Ito naman yung the kind of counseling for individuals who experienced emotional or physical disabilities, and undergoing such physical disability is very it could be depressing as well. So yun yung tawag naman natin for rehabilitation counseling. And then meron din tayong mental health counseling and substance abuse counseling, and then educational counseling. So educational is more focused talaga sa school. So ang difference naman ng educational sa guidance and career counseling, educational kasi it concerns more about the whole school or the mental health of the students as a whole. But for guidance and career, it's more focused towards your development in terms of career, or pwede din kasi ang guidance, they could work along with counselors and psychologists, school psychologists. But the thing is, just in the Philippines, school psychologists are not enough. So majority of the professionals are in school are guidance counselor. And the sad thing is that the number of counselors here in the Philippines is not enough to actually accommodate thousands of students. That's why mahirap din siya na no matter how much you want to cater the students, the needs of your students, there's just too many for one counselor. So, ang nangyayari, there's a tendency for some guidance, mga advisor sila, and then meron din teacher na din yung guidance counselor, so hindi na nakaka-focus. So, ang tendency na ng one guidance is para na siyang pang-student affair. Parang kung may sanction, kaya nagkakaroon na, if there's a problem, doon na lang dadalhin sa guidance kasi sila naman yung nakikipag-usap sa student. So, nagkakaroon, and instead of focusing on the counseling services itself, nagkakaroon ng ibang function yung guidance center. So, yun. Ang ideal, if you really need, if you have issues sa school, it's important na meron kayo mapupuntahang guidance office to communicate your concerns about school. Kasi ang educational counseling, it's not just about your academic It's even experiencing low self-esteem, or if you're experiencing bullying, pwede rin naman yung concern about your standing talaga. So education, it's a big spectrum. So, yun. Sa guidance and career counseling kasi, it's more focused in terms of your career once you step into high school or once you step to college. Ano ba yung course na dapat ko kunin? Yun. And then, if graduating students naman sa college, ano bang trabaho ang sa akin? Or am I mentally fit already to work? Parang ganon. It's conditioning. It's helping students prepare for their career development. Ayan.
Okay, so it's good, Miss, now that the spectrum for counseling is broad, that is able to accommodate different needs. So, dear listeners, if you think that your case is not common, that doesn't mean that you should be afraid or you should be ashamed of getting help. Because counseling, after all, is the process of talking about your personal problems with a counselor. So, Miss, to people like me who are unaware and curious, can you explain to us what normally happens during a counseling session?
Okay. Sa isang counseling kasi, the typical structure kasi is that you meet with the client and then you get to know the client first. Some instance, nagkakaroon ng interview. The interview part is getting the history, getting to know your family background, your personal information, pwede rin yung medical history mo. And then, usually, 1 or 2 sessions yun eh. And then if the counselor seems to recognize that this individual is maybe experiencing some sabihin natin disorder, or parang they're giving a diagnostic impression, so they would provide a psychological assessment. So meron ganon times. So minsan nagpo-provide muna yung counselor ng, or they would ask another assistant, either from a psychometrician, to provide a psychological assessment. So, pag sinabi nating assessment, various tests yon. So, it depends on the case. If the person is may have symptoms of depression or may have symptoms of anxiety, so doon nakafocus yung assessment. So, after that, pwede na sila magkaroon ng, or nagkakaroon sila ng talk sessions or talk therapy. So, nag-uusap sila, nag-converse, getting to know what is the problem, getting to know ano ba yung situation, current situation, ganon. May times na hindi naman necessary yung assessment. It just so happen na if the counselor really wants a sure or an accurate measure of what is really happening to the individual, to the student, pwede naman mag-provide ng assessment. Pero may times kasi din na ang case naman, pwede nang kahit walang assessment. And they may go straight to talk therapy. So the talk therapy, ito yung parang typical na nakikipagkwentuhan ka sa counselor. So that is the time that you open up about your problems at home, or usually ang tanong kasi ng counselor, how are you? How's your day? Ano yung what happened to you today, or what's the most interesting happening that happened to you within the week? So parang it's the opening question for you to open up if you have concerns. Kasi sometimes when we talk, parang kahit okay ka lang, mag-umpisa ka na, ay okay lang ako miss, ito nang ganito nangyari. And then unti-unti, when you get comfortable with your counselor, sometimes you feel like you wanna bring this topic out. So yun, you will start opening up and tell kung ano yung concern. And then your counselor, may counselor na they have the paper on hand, they start jotting down ano yung concern, ano yung ganitong parang something nakita niya na very happy yung individual talking about this thing, and then bago na naman yung reaction niya when talking about family, parang ganon. So they would take note. So it's not because you don't have to be conscious when you experience your counselor writing down. Kasi before, when I was in college, I was very conscious about what my counselor was doing. Nagja-jot down, parang I see the non-verbal behavior of the counselor. And for an individual as a psych student, tapos yun yung tinuturo. Parang very conscious ka, parang ay, nagno-note down si Miss habang nagsisession kami. So parang yun, you have to, when you enter a routine or and counseling with your counselor, you should be just let go of those worries and just talk, you know? Kasi yun yung pinaka-main focus ng counseling service, or yun yung pinaka-heart kasi ng counseling service, which is the counseling, and it's talking, it's bringing out the problem. And once your counselor recognizes ano yung issue, ano yung problem, there are some counselors that provide assignments. Hindi siya yung assignment na parang, kailangan the next day, provide mo to hindi siya ganon. Usually, ang mangyari, the counselor would provide an assignment or a homework na, sige, in the next session or that we're going to meet next week, makita tayo ulit. But within that 1 week, start writing down your, make a journal, ganyan. If there's anything that's happening to you na very significant for you, write it down. And then Share it to me once we meet again. Parang ganon. It's the only way for, parang it's the way for the counselor to help the client to recognize their emotions or to recognize their experiences, because you have to remember that your counselor is not your teacher to tell you what to do. The task of the counselor is to guide the client. So ang idea kasi, the people have the misconception, I think, that ang counselor mo ang mag-advise sa'yo, anong gagawin mo, anong gagawin mo sa buhay mo. Hindi siya ganun eh. Klaro na sa amin before na counselors are not there to dictate what you're going to do to fix your life. Your counselor is there to guide you, to help you recognize what you can do as an individual. So parang ang point kasi ng assignments is to make you realize na, ay, oo nga pala, kaya ko palang gawin to. Na despite the adversities I'm experiencing, I have this, when I express my emotions, when I talk my emotions to other people, it will help me to handle stress, to handle anxiety, to handle whatever emotions that's boiling up inside you, di ba? And then pagka nag-meet ulit, the client could express, like, Miss, ito yung nangyari sa akin, tapos nagawa ko to. So doon ipoprocess ng counselor na, oh, this what happened to you, ito yung nagawa mo, ito yung nangyari sa'yo, ito yung strategy na ginawa mo. So parang the counselor would help you realize what steps you did, what steps you're supposed to do next time para mas okay, try mo naman yung ganito. Para nagsasuggest lang. Hindi sila nandun to tell you to dictate. Nandun sila to suggest, and then it's up to the individual if they can do it, if they will apply it. And then kapag ka okay na, ayun, nag-evaluate sila, and then at the end, pwedeng mag-feedback. So, hindi ibig sabihin na tapos ng isang session, tapos na. Hindi ka na required bumalik. If the individual really needs to seek out again help, they can always go to the counselor. Ganon siya. So, kahit matapos yung session nyo, hindi ibig sabihin nun, hindi ka na pwede na parang may expectation, ay, dapat okay ka na. Kasi di ba nanggaling ka na sa akin? Hindi siya ganon. If you really need help, di lumapit ka. It's okay. Parang, mas okay yun na if you really need assistance, I'm willing to help. Ganon ang counselor. Ganon siya dapat. And then, siguro naiisip nila na dapat may ang counseling, dapat matagal. Na parang, it takes up around, like, I had 6 sessions. Parang, hindi okay yun. Na it takes you so long to be okay. Na parang ibig sabihin ba, nagkakaroon ng hindrance from you being okay, di ba? Actually nga, mas okay yung 1 to 2 sessions, 3 sessions with your counselor. Kasi ibig sabihin, you're improving. Mas kaya mo na kahit wala kang guidance counselor to help you figure out how to handle your situation. Ibig sabihin, as an individual, kaya mo na siyang i-handle yung stress mo, yung anxiety mo, yung mga panic attacks mo, parang ganon. Ibig sabihin, kakayanin mo na on your own. Pero kasi, pagka tumagal ng tumagal, it takes a year having a session, ibig sabihin nun, may tendency, nagre-rely na yung client sa counselor. Na, ibig sabihin parang, ay, dependent na siya sa akin. The client is not getting well. Kailangan usually, hindi naman siya agad sinasuggest na i-refer na sa iba. But then if the counselor sees that they're not working anymore, it's not being effective, baka kailangan ng bagong approach. Na yun naman din ang isang kinakatakot ng ibang clients. Na when they are being referred to somebody else. Na parang, ay, bakit ako transfer ni Miss sa ibang tao? May mali ba sa akin? Parang ganon. So, magkakaroon na naman ng negative emotions, there's the anxiety na naman, there's the parang negative thoughts about me, ganon. Na parang, ay, hindi niya, sinukuan ako ni Miss. Bakit ganon? Parang, so it's heavy again. That's why it is also important that counselors clarify things na I'm asking for somebody else to help you out because maybe my techniques is not working for you. So maybe somebody else would be more helpful sa case mo. So yun yung magiging usual change. But then, yun yung special cases naman yun eh. It's not really that common. So, ganun ang nagiging takbo sa isang counseling session.
Thank you so much, Miss, for debunking a lot of misconceptions, for giving us a glimpse of what generally happens inside a counseling session, especially addressing that it is normal to be anxious in heading to a counseling room. Crystal, do you have any insight?
Yes, actually that's very important because I really don't have any idea, Miss, na ganyan pala yung nangyayari sa isang counseling session, because for us, before counselors or counseling session was like, dun ka papagalitan, wag kang gumawa ng ganito, wag kang gumawa ng ganyan kasi papagalitan ka na misguidance, ganyan, Miss. So, it was really insightful for me, Miss. And actually, Miss, I think students are also just wary and parang doubtful sila sa counselors, Miss. Right now, I don't know if you've heard about this incident, Miss, but a few years back, there was this news about a grade 12 student who took their own life by jumping off their own school building. Before this, it was reported that the student confided with the guidance counselor that they had been physically, verbally, and psychologically abused by their parents. So the guidance counselor allegedly advised the student's mother to take their child to a clinical psychologist for consultation, Miss, because of the numerous suicide attempts that have been made in the past by the said student. Then one day, the student was caught trying to jump off the building until a teacher caught them. And because of this, the student's parents were called to the school's guidance office. So when the mother arrived, she had a brief conversation with her child at the office. Then not long after, the student excused themselves to the ladies' room, and eventually, I'm just going to mention a trigger warning for this because this might be a little bit sensitive for some of our listeners. So discretion is advised. But not long after, Miss, the student jumped out of the window. Then after this very sad incident, a lot of people expressed their sadness and, more importantly, their anger. Some even stating that the guidance counselor should not have told the parents about the problems, considering they were the root of it. So a lot of people, especially students, have expressed their distrust towards the guidance and counseling services, Miss. So because of their empathizing against the late students' rash yet unfortunate action. So do you have any opinion about the situation, Miss? And what do you think we can do for students to trust their own school counselors again?
All right. One thing concerned kasi dyan is about the ethical consideration about the confidentiality of the cases. But ang isa kasing concern na the individuals have to realize that as minor, the guidance counselor or the psychologist has a responsibility to inform parents, lalo na kung bata. Since the student is around grade 12, correct? So more or less nasa 18 na siya. So pwede naman siyang pwede kasi nagsabi yung student na I don't want my parents to know about this case, ganyan. Pwede i-keep ng counselor yon. That is her responsibility to keep that kind of confidentiality because the student or the client did not permit that the parents would know. But then in cases na it's very extreme that there are suicidal attempts, so it is important na merong malalapitan ang counselor to inform the people around the student. Because if the counselor does not inform the family na nagkakaroon ng ganitong tendency yung bata, hindi niya mapipigilan eh. Kasi hindi naman din 24 hours na babantay ng counselor yung student. Na because suicidal attempts or suicidal ideation is anytime. If you have that sudden urge like I just want to end it, gagawin yon. So if the counselor does not inform the people around him that the student is having these kind of thoughts or having those attempts, hindi mape-prevent yung life. So hindi ma-preserve yung life, sorry. So kinailangan ng counselor to inform the people around because it was an emergency na kailangan may nakakaalam na family member. The thing is, pwede naman hindi kailangan sabihin ng counselor na kung ano yung mismong issue ng student. That's the confidentiality, not to inform sino ano bang cause nito. But the counselor should inform that the student is experiencing emotional disturbance, na nagkakaroon siya ng symptoms of suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, and it is important that the family would be aware because that's the only way to help the child from committing the suicide. But it just so happened nung nangyari yun, nasa school din. So, parang nag-breakdown na talaga yung student. It seems that the student really gave up on that time. It was the only excuse. Kasi parang no one's listening anymore. It just so happened. Hindi na klaro na parang the informing your parents was something for you to be okay. It's not because the counselor wants the family to intervene with the counseling. It's because they want to make sure na that the student would not take their life. But it just so happened na give up it's not give up, it's but breaking down. They had that breaking point, then they committed the suicide, and that's very unfortunate na hindi na klaro. So if that so happen, you meron kasing sa sessions when we are doing the sessions at the beginning, there are contracts. There's the parang hanggang saan pwedeng mag-inform ang counselor sa family, when would be the time that the counselor would have to inform emergency contacts. So nandun yun, kailangan klaro yun sa client mo. Kailangan klaro yun doon sa student. So I think there could be some kulang na steps na hindi na nagawa, kaya nagkaroon ng ganitong issue. So, but then they cannot really, I don't see that you could blame the counselor because it was an emergency case. Na kahit naman din kami as a psychologist, hindi namin siya kakayanin on our own. So when the individual is already, parang nagkulong na, parang siniklud na, handa na siyang tumalon, let's say, ako, ganun. Tapos ang client ko is from a different city. And then there's, how could I run to my client immediately for those case? Sino ba yung immediate people na nandyan to help the individual? So I have to disclose. Parang ganun kasi yun. Big sabihin, I'm asking for people around the individual to help out so that I could talk to the person. Parang ganun mangyari. So, yun yung naging parang siguro attempt ng counselor when they try to inform the parents. And kailangan hindi natin siya tignan na parang the counselor was being insensitive to the student. It was not. It was part of the protocol. It was part of an emergency scenario na kailangan na counselor na i-inform na yung family. Ngayon.
Alright, thank you so much for clearing that out, Miss. It was a really important issue na I think we should start talking about talaga.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are ang ano ko nga kasi there are a lot of cases ngayon for suicide attempts for students because of not just because of the pandemic na madaming issues, they feel that isolated, that they cannot reach out even to their families. So it is important na they should not see it as parang I have to deal it on my own. It's only one way. You have to people have to realize na it's okay to reach out, na kahit ba gusto mong itago sa family mo na sila yung problema ko, sila yung concern ko, hindi naman siya kailangan sabihin ng counselor mo sa parents na kayo po kasi yung problema ng bata. Hindi naman siya ganon. Outwardly, hindi siya ginaganon. Because ang confidentiality, ang promise ng counselor is not to disclose the issue, what was being talked about during the sessions. Ang nangyari was to inform what was happening to the child, na there are certain behavior na ginagawa na yung bata. And people around you should be aware. Kasi malay mo na lang, mag-attempt talaga yung magulang na hindi nila, mag-attempt yung magulang, sorry. Makita na magulang, nag-attempt na yung bata. And then they're not aware what's happening. So, yun, to able to help as well the family para din isa silang support dun sa student or dun sa bata. Kasi kung lagi nila natin itatago sa family that they could be the support system of the student, of the individual, parang paano mo matutulungan yung tao kung lagi mo na lang ipupush away yung mga pwedeng tumulong sa'yo. So, yun, that's the thing.
So, very delicate po talaga yung situation which must be dealt with carefully po, Miss.
Yes, very.
Okay. So, Miss, with our next question, in series, movies, and in the media, it is always showcased that people with mental issues or problems are the only ones who seek professional help. This is what's been largely depicted, which leads us to another misconception about counseling as a whole. The perception that only people who have mental issues need or can avail counseling. How can we debunk this misconception?
Ayun. I think media is really one of those platforms na pwede nating magamit to clarify things about mental health. And the sad thing is that ang kaya lang ipakita ng mga movies, ng mga series is that you have to have a clinical diagnosis of depression or anxiety, or kailangan para kang nagkakaroon ka na ng schizophrenic symptoms para lang masabi na you can reach out to mental health professionals. That's very not true. I mean, in any problem, kung ikaw as an individual, if you really know yourself, like, I can't handle this on my own anymore, I need advice or I need guidance, parang who is the best people to reach out? So pwede naman family, nandun yun. That's the good thing. But then, when you're not satisfied with the advices that you get from your family, para kasing may halong judgment, may halong pagkikriticize, may halong pag-invalidate ng feelings, parang, wag na lang, hindi naman nila ako naiintindihan. So, hindi mo na na-realize, then go to a professional, go to a mental health professional. Because mental health professionals are the unbiased side. They have to realize that counselors are the outside people. So they cannot immediately judge you, or they're not allowed to judge you. Their only task is to understand your situation, have a wide knowledge about what they could do. Hindi ka kasi judge ng counselor, bakit hindi niya kaya i-handle ang love life. Hindi ganun yun eh. It's about the counselor would see that this individual is having difficulty of sorting their emotions, handling the stress. Parang ganon. Hindi ka niya i-judge personally. They are evaluating how you are handling situations, handling circumstances that requires this kind of reaction. Or they realize or they recognize that the individual is having difficulty of reacting in a better way sa mga ganitong circumstance. So, yun yung kailangan i-explain or parang ipakita sa media na when you need help, it's not for those na kailangan ng clinical, kailangan you are clinically needing help. No, that's not true. Kahit sino, if you really want guidance from people who would provide you a very analyzed way how to deal with situations, you can go to your counselor. You can reach out for mental health professionals. Kasi, hindi naman sila nang-judge na parang, wala, hindi ka clinically depressed. That's okay. You can deal that on your own. Hindi siya ganon. Nakikita nila na this individual needs help. So, I will try to help them recognize kung anong kaya mong gawin. What can you do para even on your own, kaya mo siyang i-handle. parang ganun. The counselor or the psychologist would help you develop skills, develop strategies, how you could manage your emotions, how you could manage your situation. So, yun. So, hindi mo kailangan na, kailangan ko maging depressed ako para lang may excuse ako pumunta or lumapit. That's not true.
Yes, kasi I think, Miss, the younger generations, especially when talking about this one, parang sasabihin nila na, okay lang naman ako kaya ko naman, bakit ako pupunta sa kanila? Because media depicted like super grand, na super heavy na talaga yung problem before asking for help, right, Eliza?
Yes, so let's not wait for the breaking point. Let's be proactive towards solving our mental problems and ask when we know we need to. Listen to your body. Okay, so thank you, Miss. Now, for my next question is, many people resort to keeping their problems to themselves instead of seeking help because they believe that counseling costs a lot. Is this true, or are there services available for people who cannot afford to pay much for a professional counseling, Miss?
Okay. As an individual as well who wants to seek out mental health as well, ang concern agad ang iniisip, how much? It's very expensive. Parang professional to, may bayad to, mahal. We have to realize na stop thinking about the money. Start thinking about your health. Ganon. Because counselors are or psychologists are willing to adjust. Ano siya? Parang if the counselor sees that hindi niya kakayanin to pay, but the need is really there, sometimes they provide it freely because they want to help out. Yan. Lalo na kung sa school. Yan, you can avail them, you can go to your counselor anytime. That's like their job. That's their purpose in the school. Parang mas gugustuhin nilang, come on, go to the guidance. We'd love to accept you. We'd love to talk to you. Ganon. So you should not be afraid going to your counselor na parang, ay, sisingilin ba ako ni Miss ng professional, Like, no, that's not true. That's their main purpose sa school. So you can go to your guidance counselor sa school talaga. Now, if you're going to seek mental health professionals privately, yung mga nagpa-private practice or sa mga clinic, meron silang set professional fee. But then, they could address their concern na parang, I'd really love to have sessions but I am tight with the budget na ito lang po yung kakayanin ko for ganitong sessions. The counselor could negotiate. Pwede sila mag-usap saan, ano bang pinaka applicable sa'yo na kakayanin. So yun. They are willing to talk about it. Kasi part yun ng contract eh. Hindi naman siya parang sinabi, ito, fee ko for every session na that's non-negotiable. Hindi siya ganon. The counselors or the psychologists are always willing to talk because we also realize that this kind of field should not be limiting to anybody. That this should be accessible to anyone. Kahit ba mahirap ka, kahit ba naka-rely ka lang sa scholarship at wala kang extra pera to seek out professionals, di ba? You could negotiate na parang, ma'am, this is what I could only afford. Ganitong sessions po. Ganitong amount. Willing sila makipag-usap. So, don't let the finance or don't let the payment be a hindrance to your need to seek out professional help. Kasi kahit ba naman, minsan nga may mga professionals na sa probinsya na dahil wala silang pera, kahit kung ano yung gulay, may gulay po akong na doon sa palayan po namin, ito po yung ko, ito na lang pong pambayad ko, tatanggapin nila yun because they feel grateful enough na at least they went to them and seek help and this is what they could afford. So yun, makakain naman ng counselor yun or ng psychologist or pwede niyang ibenta yun kung gusto niyang magtinda ng gulay, anything, di ba? that should not be a hindrance to anybody. Parang, I could offer you this this much lang po. Pasensya na po. Parang, no, it's okay. Tanggap namin it. It's understandable. Hindi siya parang, ang mental health is not for those rich people. No. It's for everybody. Regardless of your economic status, regardless of how much your parents earn, no matter how much you are, even if you're a working student, we don't care about that. Diba? You have to realize that these professionals have ethics. Na we're not supposed to say no to people who needs help. We are willing to help. You know? Yun. Kaya pwede siya ma-negotiate. You should not be afraid to freely talk about it as well. Hindi ka dapat mahiya na parang, ay ma'am, ito lang po kaya kong ibayad. Or parang, hala, kailangan ba libo ang binabayad ko dito kasi mental health to. Kasi taga-syudad siya. Ganon. Hindi siya ganon. No. It really depends on the therapist. It depends on your counselor. You just have to be open. You have to be you're not supposed to be afraid to talk about na kung ano lang pong kaya kong ibayad po sa inyo. Yun. Ano siya. It should be open to anybody.
Okay. Thank you, Miss. So that's really the message that we want to give out to our listeners, that mental professional help should be inclusive and is inclusive, na ang pagtulong ay para sa lahat. So in regards with my previous question, Miss,
yes.
Would you agree that the neglect for addressing mental health problems, even from people who are suffering them, is somewhat systematic?
Helping people? Sorry?
Like, if systematic po ba na yung neglect, hindi po ba siya na-address nationally po? Like, it's in the system.
I think kasi people are, at the same time kasi people are afraid to come to mental health professionals, so we cannot really help out people if they do not come. Kasi minsan din hindi naman din pwede namin sabihin para sige, I'll offer you a session. Hindi siya ganun. If your client is really not willing to talk about their problems, those kinds of therapies would not be effective at all, because clients should be willing to talk about their problems, and that's the only time that counselors will be effective. So kung hindi naman willing ang mga tao to really step out of their comfort zone to reach out mental health professionals, we can only do so much. We could offer our services to people, but if our clients are not willing to have these kind of sessions, it would not be effective. So kailangan din kasi it's a two-way. Parang no matter how much we really want to make this accessible to everybody, but then people have different views about this kind of profession now, or seeking out this kind of profession help. So parang mahirap siya maging systemized, maging parang gawin natin siyang regular na parang it's always available. We wanted to make it available all the time, but the thing is that not everybody is ready yet to embrace this kind of service, because there are still reservations about talking to strangers, talking to people, disclosing personal issues, or even if parang the perception na parang I can manage on my own, yung ganon. It's very hard na parang gawin natin siyang parang siyang sa mga hospitals na it's available anytime. You can go to the hospital and seek for a doctor's opinion. Hindi siya ganon. Hindi siya ganon ka-open pa sa mga tao. That's why it is important that people realize that mental health is important. Na it's not about being okay on your own. Okay siya kung kaya mo, but then if you're starting to break down na you're insisting na kakayanin ko on my own when it's obviously hindi na, you can, they should feel na it's okay, because kung kung pipilitin, sabihin natin ng family na nag-insist na, no, you have to attend counseling. If the client is not willing, nothing will happen to the session. Kasi laging parang may doubt or laging may wall between the counselor and the client. So, hindi magpo-progress, magsasayang lang ng time, ng money, ng effort. Kasi walang willingness, walang acceptance, walang initiative to actually make a change. So, yun yung difference, yun pa yung mahirap. Kasi hindi pa lahat willing. Hindi pa natin kakayanin. That's why we have to continuously, encourage everybody to realize or to reflect and know na this is something you could ask for help anytime. Just like a typical or just like the hospitals, yung usual na physical check-up na parang kailangan available siya. And when I need it, I'll go there. Ganon.
Yes, Miss. I think it's very important talaga. And na-pick out ko po kanina sa sinabi niyo na it's also about the client, most especially about the client, that they need to start open up. People should start opening up to counselors, Miss. Pero kasi, Miss, I think na a problem is that being in our country that is known to be devoted to their religion, it's also a common problem that whenever a person, especially the younger generations, would make themselves emotionally vulnerable, they are invalidated and even seen as someone who is lacking faith in their religion. Like, kulang ka lang sa dasal, ganyan, kaya ka nagkakaganyan. It's a bit dissuading kasi, Miss, knowing that this form of invalidation usually comes from family members or those older generation, Miss. So, as an expert, Miss, how would you approach people with this mindset and convince them that counseling is equally important as their religion and their faith?
Ayun. Actually, I'm surrounded with people that are very old generation na. Siguro, I'm just fortunate enough that my parents are willing to listen about, kasi my parents are seniors already and they've never encountered counselors or psychologists. So, religion ang kanilang panghugot when you're experiencing problems na parang, idasal natin to kay Lord, just read the Bible, yung parang go to Mass, you have to attend Mass kasi dasal lang yan, papakinggan ni Lord. Hindi naman natin kasi sinasabi na we're not praying, we're not religious. It's not about that. That's the thing that they do not realize na it's not about lacking faith. It's about because I need guidance. It's not about, I'm not asking for parang spiritual guidance. Yes, I have that. Pero hindi kasi nare-realize ng older generation that we're actually seeking for like an actual guidance from people who could help me figure out how to deal with situations like this. Parang kung po pwede lang pong may manual po, yun na lang pong babasahin ko. Pero wala po kasing ganon. So, kailangan kasing ang ano natin, we have to inform the people around us, especially to the older generation, na parang it's not that po nakulang po ako sa pagdadasal po. Kasi nandun naman po yun, may pagdadasal naman po akong ginagawa. Pero kailangan ko po kasi ng physical guidance, parang ganon. Parang it's not about my prayers, it's not about my spiritual spirit is kulang. Ang kulang ko po is yung actual guidance po. I need direction. Parang ganon. So, ang isa natin doon, siguro the thing kasi is it's difficult to talk to people who are very close-minded to such things. Kasi una, hindi naman sila din aware. Yan, kulang sila sa information about what is about seeking help a mental health professional. So, huwag tayo maging din. Let's not give up on them. Let's not also be parang ay wag na lang, ayoko na lang mag-disclose sa parents ko kasi sasabihin lang nila ako na parang dasal ko na lang yan. No, it's not that. It's about, siguro we have to also, let's just look beyond that. And that it's important that your family is there to guide. parang kahit ba may sinasabi silang ganito, let's try to pick out what are those words na pwede nating kunin to guide us, to help us, to actually sort our emotions. And then just reflect on your own. Ano bang pwede kong gawin to help me? Because kung hindi kaya ng parents ko i-provide the guidance that I want, let's try to help ourselves as well. And then, if hindi talaga kaya, then reach out to professionals. Because professionals naman, may mga professionals na ini-incorporate nila ang religion. But that is not the ideal thing. Kasi paano kung ang client mo is not very religious? So, ang ano na doon, kailangan aware yung counselor. So, kung ano yung magiging strategy niya. So, if the client is very, is not comfortable talking about religion, then the counselor would not include things like that and would be more rationalized, more analytical kung yun yung preferred ng client. So, ganun siya. If our concern are the people na parang ano bang pwede nating i-advise sa mga taong ayaw maniwala sa yung mga parents natin na parang hindi mo kailangan yan. I really don't know because it's their way of thinking. We cannot insist something to people kung hindi sila willing makinig, matuto. But then we should not also just accept it na parang ayaw kasi ng magulang ko, dasal ko na lang daw. Hindi na lang ako magsisik ng help. Just ignore that. And then if you really need help, just seek out. It's not because, hindi dahil sa i-judge ka ng parents mo na bakit ka lumapit sa ganun tao? Stranger yan, hindi mo ko yan kilala. Kaano-ano mo ba yan? Baka i-chismis ka lang yan, ganyan. Dasal na lang natin yan, ilalapit natin yan kay father, ganyan. Hindi siya ganun. Parang, sige ma'am, do whatever you want. You can disclose it, whatever to the priest. Sige, pero ito po yung gusto kong gawin. I need this help. So, kahit ba merong mga taong magsasabi sa'yo na idaanin mo na lang sa religion, then that's their suggestion. But for you personally, if you really need help, go seek out help from them, from your counselor or from your psychologist. Kasi para sa sarili mo yun we should not be dictated by people na kung ano dapat mong gawin. You know best para sa sarili mo, ano bang kailangan ko? Ano bang service ang kailangan ko? Do I really need a doctor already? Sige, I'll go to a doctor. Parang ganun yun hindi mo naman pwede din sabihin na parang sa may sakit lang yan. Kung malala na yung sakit mo, sasabihin mo ba, sige, dadasal na lang natin yan. Mawawala yan, miraculously. Parang pwede naman po tayo magdasal, pero kailangan ko ng doktor. Because these are the people who are studying about certain things na sila nakakaalam who could guide me. That's also what we are doing as a mental health professionals. These professionals are studying about behaviors so they could help me. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's not, parang sige, pagdasal po natin ang aking sarili, let's go pray for it, but then I still need help. So, yun. So, kahit ba sabihan ka ng magulang mo na parang you don't need help, if you need help, go seek out. And then, parang somehow, you let your parents, you have to be, if you want your parents to understand why you're seeking this kind of help, then also inform them kung, this happened to our session, mom, na we talked about my emotions, my problems sa school. And then, parang, bakit pwede mo naman sa akin ikwento? Just parang, I prefer a third person na hindi na, or parang hindi na nahahaluan ng emotional responses yung sa akin. Because I need to realize something that's beyond familial reaction. Kasi pag family kasi, may halong parang hindi, wala lang yan kasi nandito lang kami for you. Parang it's more than that, just that. Kasi pag family kasi nagkakaroon ng bias yun yung problema. That's why if you want advices that is not influenced by family reactions or family emotions, yung ganon, yung connections, yun, pwede, go seek out a professional. Kasi hindi kaya ng counselor makipag-connect emotionally. It's just that they try not to get involved in that manner para maging unbiased ang guidance. Yun kasi yung difference ng just praying, just seeking out family support. Ganon.
Okay, thank you so much for that enlightening message, Miss. It was very insightful. So, for the last question, Miss, what do you want to say to our listeners, especially to the students who are listening right now? How will you convince them when they're afraid to reach out to their guidance counselors, Miss?
Okay. Ma-share ko lang. When I was in college, I was really also afraid to reach out to my guidance counselor. Una kasi, I'm afraid to disclose things na parang I'm not comfortable talking to people about my personal issues. Na parang it's something I should deal it on my own. Until I reached a point that I really didn't know what to do. So that was like that was the moment, the realization na why should I deal with this thing on my own? When ako nga mismo on my own, hindi ko na alam anong gagawin ko. Para kasing the judgment, it's very clouded already. Parang wala na ako ibang maisip na I'm already pessimistic, I'm already depressed, I don't know, I can't think straight. So what was the only way for me to get out of that state? I needed to hear words that would help me get out of that state. And one of the people I saw was the counselor. Kahit ba nandun yung fear, even if you have that fear or doubt about talking about your problems, we have to realize that we need to seek help from people. You can't always deal with your problems on your own. If you can deal it on your small things, sige, go. But if you really need guidance from people already, let's not keep on thinking na parang, but I'm scared of people or I'm scared that this person would judge me. Ang isipin mo na lang, ano naman kung alam niya yung story about sa akin, kailangan ko ng tulong. And we have to also realize that these professionals are aware how much it is very, how sensitive these topics are. Disclosing your problems can make an individual very vulnerable. And they are aware of it, or they know the importance of parang halaga ng sa tao na mag-open up. So, we should not be afraid because they know what they're doing. Hindi naman sila mga chismosa na parang to tell you kung anong, parang ay itong estudyante ko ganito pala yan. No, they're not like that. They may talk about with other professionals because they need guidance. They also need assistance kung paano katulungan. You should not be afraid that they would do that. But that's all because they are doing it for your sake na matulungan ka. Kasi paano kung yung counselor mo pala ay hindi sanay sa ganitong concern? Like they've never dealt with clients that deal with depression. They're only just aware of anxiety first time. So they need to seek out help as well. Parang let's not try to stop as well counselors from seeking out other assistance. Parang ganun siya. We should learn to, embrace the fact that people needs help. And as an individual, you should not be afraid to seek help. Kasi, ano ba masama kung humingi ka ng tulong? Hindi siya kabawasan sa pagkatao mo. Hindi siya kakulangan. Hindi siya weakness. It's more courageous of you as well kung kaya mong maging vulnerable. It's very courageous of the individual to open up because it's not easy, di ba? I know that it's not easy to open up to people that you've met for the first time. That's why pinapahalagahan ng mga counselors yun when they realize that this student or this individual is opening up, because it's not easy for anybody. Kaya papahalagahan nila yan. And as much as possible, they would try to keep the confidentiality. They would keep it just between us, the counselor and the client. Ganon. They would try to do that. But if, they would also need help. They would also need assistance. So, wag din tayong matakot na parang ikukwento lang nila to sa ibang tao. No, they're doing that for a particular reason. It's not because they want to put shame on you, but it's because they're needing assistance as well. So kahit ba may mga doubts tayo, sige, okay lang yan. But then you will also realize na habang nandun ka sa session, how helpful this is. Minsan mga makakalimutan mo na lang yung doubts pag nandun ka na. Kasi mas napahalagahan mo yung mental health mo. Mas na-realize mo yung benefit ng pakikipag-usap sa isang counselor. Makakalimutan mo yung anxiety mo. Kasi nagkakaroon kayo ng rapport. Nagkakaroon kayo ng trust sa counselor. That's the good thing about it. It helps you be comfortable to actually express your emotions. So, yun. That's why I am really encouraging everybody na kahit anong pang problema yan, if you really think that you need help, if you really need guidance from people, from the professionals, seek out help. Because no one is going to judge you. Kahit ba may mag-talk dyan, other people around you, parang, ay, seeking help from professionals. So what? This is for my sake. Ang iisipin mo, it's for my own sake. Hindi naman yung mga tao, ibang tao, ang magbibigay sa'yo ng mabuting mental health. It's you. It's always you who needs to be, unahin mo sarili mo. Yun ang lagi mo isipin. Hindi mo siya ginagawa to satisfy other people, or hindi mo siya ginagawa to make others happy. Ginagawa mo siya because you want to be happy. I'm doing it for myself. Yun ang isipin nyo. It's for my sake. Yun ang importante. Yan.
Okay, thank you, Miss. So it's really about breaking the stigma of telling ourselves, telling others that we do not become any less of who we are when we choose to express. Right, Crystal?
And I think it's very important then for our listeners to realize that your guidance counselor and the room within you are getting counseling is a safe place. It's a safe space. So we don't have anything to worry about, our dear listeners. And wow, I didn't realize we were talking for such a long time na po talaga, Miss. And we've really picked up a lot of information because of you. There's a lot of new information. Personally, there's a lot of new information na napawaw na lang talaga ako kasi I didn't know guidance and counseling could be this interesting talaga, Miss. So, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to sit down and have this casual yet very informative talk with us, Miss.
Thank you. Kasi it's really nice actually to have this kind of conversation sa mga younger generation because, a lot of people needs help and a lot of people needs new information. We have to really break the stigma, and that's important. Na from sa part nyo pa lang as a psychology students, you could start helping people na to realize that they could reach out to professionals and that you're there to help out, diba? Kasi yun naman yung goal natin is to help people out.
Yes, Miss. I'm sure all the things that you have mentioned in talaga, Miss, will help our listeners and give them a new and better perspective about guidance counseling and the importance of mental health in general. Kaya we really appreciate you for having the sit-down talk with us, Miss. And I'm sure that our listeners are appreciating all the things that you have said earlier din po.
And thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss, for enriching our knowledge and providing us with great educational value, Miss. I'm sure there are a lot of things that the audience picked up from this afternoon's episode.
Salamat. Thank you talaga.
60 to 70% of young adults say stigma holds them back from seeking treatment, or talking about their mental health to others. The fight to end stigma is far from over. We may have experienced changes during this pandemic, and things may go in different directions. There might be a lot of frustrations and shame, but do know that many people care. Many will go out of the way to help through these difficult times. Our friends, family, colleagues, and especially our mental health professionals, because we believe it is during these times that bring out the best and the worst in us. Together, let us see the positive side while living through the horrors of this pandemic. Reflect more on what really matters in life and what we are grateful for, in the hope of improving well-being and in motivating ourselves. Together, let's decrease the stigma of seeking professional help and normalize talking about our mental health, because mental illness is not a choice, and just like any other people, it is normal to need treatment. It is also important now, more than ever, to stay educated, stay vocal, and to continue to listen and learn. Let's end mental health stigma. We can do this together. You are never alone. Thank you for listening to our podcast.
To our listeners, we leave you with this quote from the National Alliance on Mental Illness as we fight this battle together and become braver one step at a time.
Every day brings new hope. Every day, we have an opportunity to help create a broader understanding of mental health, overcome stereotypes, and break down barriers.
We can all do a little bit more each day to eliminate stigma and replace it with help and hope.
Once again, this is Mind Talks. We air every Fridays at 9 a.m., and we're hoping to be with you on our next episode.
Always remember, check on others, but check on yourself too.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a nice day.